Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Rarman Studios, and one of my most requested things to go over is Unity's GUI. So I wanted to go over that and show various things and do a series on kind of each element so that we can understand them more. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new C# script, and I'm going to call it GUI_button. I'm going to go over some aspects of the button. So I will just drag this script to anything in my scene. I can put it on the main camera or any of these objects. It doesn't really matter at this moment. So I'm just going to put it on this cube since I have a cube in there. And now I'm going to open that up and check out what's inside. So when we're drawing UIs, the main thing is that we have to have the function. I like to put private in front, so private void on GUI. This is where we do all of our rendering of all of our GUI elements, and so I'm going to start off with a simple button. So if you type in GUI, you'll see that there's a class for it, and you can hit the dot operator and see there's a bunch of stuff in here. We'll start off with our button. So what a button does is it's a button. If we click it, stuff happens. Stuff like that, and it's just as easy as that. So the first argument it takes is a rectangle. So let's put in a new rect, and this is a rectangle. It takes an x, a y, a width, and a height. So the x and y, let's put it at 15 and 15 on the screen, and the width, let's make it 100, and the height, let's make it let's say 50. And then we can put a comma, and in this second part we can put textures, we can put strings, and various other things. So let's first start off with a string. So the string I'm going to put in is, let's put I'm a button. And if we save this out, jump back over and press play, you'll see that I'm a button's up here. When we click it, nothing happens because we haven't written any code for clicking. So if we were to want something to happen when we click this, all we have to do is wrap it in an if statement. We can say if GUI button, and then in our code block we can do stuff. Let's just make the object it's attached to move up by a few units. So let's just go transform.position plus equals new vector 3 0 0.1f and 0. So now each time we press this button, this object is going to move up. So you can see that now it's moving up a little bit each time I click it. So that is a quick way that we're able to create a button and make things happen based on that button. So you can imagine you can have any kind of functionality in here or do anything that you want on the click of this button. Let's explore a couple other things. I'm just going to go into Photoshop real quick, or Paint, because Photoshop takes forever. So let's go into Paint, and let's resize this to something like 512. Oh, we got to do pixels. So 512. Take off the aspect ratio, 512. Okay, so we have a 512 by 512 picture here, and we're just going to draw something with our brush. Let's just draw a couple eyes, and let's make a mouth. Oh my goodness. Alright, so we'll save this out. I'm just going to do a save as, and let's put it inside of our project. My project is in my YouTube demos, Unity, GUI, assets. I'm going to create a new folder called textures and drop it in there. I'm going to call it OMG. Okay. So now that we have saved that out, let's go in here, find our texture is right there. So what we're going to do, let's delete out this update and start function, and let's put in a public texture 2D. Let's call it button image is equal to null. What we're going to do is take this button image and put it in as the image for the button. So button image, and what we need to do is go to our cube where our script is attached, and we're going to go into our textures and drop the OMG texture into that slot. So now if I were to hit play, you'll see that the button has the little picture of the guy saying OMG in it. I of course can make this button scale to the size of the image by typing in button image width and button image height in for the width and height of the button itself. So now we have this giant thing that now we can't see anything on our screen unless we expand it a little bit. So that's how we can add a image or a string into a button, create a button, and make it do things. So we can do all kinds of function calls and anything we want in here. And you also notice that when I change this to be of a certain size, say 150 and 150 on the width and height, you'll notice that the button scales to fit that and it doesn't get cropped off. So that's a quick overview on buttons, how they work, and how you can do texture images or just strings, and how to make them do cool functionality. So until next time, I think I'll do labels next, so I'll see you there. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearded Man Studios, and in this one I'm going to do labels. Labels are simple ways for you to display some sort of text somewhere on the screen. You might also be used to the game object, I think it's GUI text. You can stick that on and just type in stuff and you'll see it on the screen automatically. But we want to do this from code, so it's a little more dynamic. So let's create a new script. I'm just going to call it GUI label. And let's open that guy up. Remember, all we need really in here is a private void on GUI. Now, a label is just like a button in the sense that the way we call GUI.label, and it takes in a rectangle position and a and the string itself. So I can type in new rect. Let's call it. Let's put it on. I don't know. Let's see. That button was like 150. Let's put it at 200, not 2,000. 215 on the Y. The width, let's make it 75, and the height, let's just make it 25. And now let's put in our string. I'm just gonna say hello, Danielle, because that's my girlfriend's name, and I always do a hello Danielle instead of hello world. You can imagine why. So now let's check this out. If we go back, hit play, nothing, absolutely nothing, because we have to attach the script to the object. So I'm going to place it on the cube and hit play again. And there you see it's cut off, and I guess this is a good thing. Now you know that, hey, the text wraps and it cuts off. So if I wanted to keep that width of 75, I would need to extend the height to something like 75. And now when I play, it's going to be wrapped and you'll be able to see it down there. But I don't want that. I want it to be hello Danielle on one line. So what I'll need to do is extend the width out to something like 150, and I can put this back to 25. There you go, hello Danielle. So in future tutorials, I'm going to show how you can dynamically see this on the screen. I might do that in the next tutorial, so that you don't have to hit play every single time that you want to see what you're putting up. And I'll go over some tips on how to do that and what to put on it. So yes. Anyways, that is a quick introduction on labels and how they work. I will be going over fonts and layouts and all kinds of other stuff later in this tutorial series, so keep watching. I'll see you there. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearded Man Studios, and if you remember from the last couple of tutorials, I did a GUI button and a GUI label. So the issue is, if I press play, that's when they show, and I can't really see that here inside of just my normal screen without having to play inside of my, I don't know what to call a scene view. So what I want to do is, there is a special case up here. If I put a open square bracket and type in execute in edit mode at the top of the label and save that out, when I jump back, you will notice, there we go, it says hello Danielle right there. We don't have to hit play, and I can see it and test it. And I can do the same thing with the button. So if I copy this and paste it over here, save it out, jump back, there we go. Now I can see the button, and obviously I can't click it because I'm not playing, but now I can see and position it wherever I want. So some tips and tricks for this is that we will want to add a actual button onto here to allow us to kind of do a debug mode. So since these UIs, actually I'm just going to keep it simple. I don't need to do polymorphism or anything like that. So let's make a public bool, and let's call it debug mode is equal to false. And we will copy this to our other script, save that, and what we want to do is wrap our entire on GUI equal to let's just say if debug mode or application.playing, then we can show it. Just so that while we're debugging, we can switch on and off so we don't have to see it all the time. So let's copy this, paste it, and wrap it around our other GUI function. Now we'll be able to jump back. You'll see that they disappear, but what I can do is I can select my cube, which seems to have moved. I can select my cube, and you can see now there's buttons for debug mode. If I check that on, it'll pop up, and that'll pop up. So if you don't want to worry about this stuff right now, you could skip that step, but for you guys who want to test things and be able to view them at certain times and make them disappear at others, there is this debug mode now that we can check on and off and see them change in real time. So that's a tip and trick on how to get these things showing up. I want to go over one more thing on tips and tricks. The next tip and trick is to make your rectangle public. So let's just say public rect. Let's call this position. Let's just leave it at position, and we can set that equal to new rect. Let's just make it what I have here. I could probably just copy this down here. I'm going to cut this out, paste it up here, and then I'm going to take this position variable and put it down where I had the original rectangle. I'm going to do the same thing on the other one, so I'm just going to copy this, paste it up here underneath the button. I'm going to cut out this new rectangle, paste it over this one, and paste position down into where that button's rectangle should be. Now, when I go back to press play, I don't even need to press play, sorry. What I can do is, since I'm in debug mode and I can see these things, what I can do is change the position and width in real time and see how things act, how they move. I can place them myself. I can move it down on the Y, say I want it a little bit further, like somewhere right there, and the height needs to be shorter and the width a little bit shorter. Then I can do the same thing for the text. If I reduce the width, you can see it starts cutting off. But I can also move the position, say I want it over there. And for the label itself, I can also add another public string text is equal to, let's put it to hello Danielle. And then I can take that text and paste it in where the string would be in the label. Now, not only can I move the position of the text, I can change the text in real time and see it change. I can delete it out. I can say, hello there, Danielle. You can see it got cut off. Now I can change the width till it pops back up, and there we go. So now I am able to change things dynamically without playing and edit them almost as if I have my own personal little editor inside of the game. So in the future tutorials, I'm going to go over some layouts and other things that I promised in the last ones, fonts and all of that. So I hope this helps out, and until next time, I will see you there. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearman Studios, and as promised, I'm going to go over how to change the font of the text. So I went online and I found some random free TTF called comic book. I'm just going to drag and drop that into my Unity scene or project folder. So what I'm going to do is I need to open up a spot to place that TTF. So if we go into our GUI label, we're going to open up a public variable. So let's do a public GUI style. If you do the GUI style, let's call it style, and set that to null. What we'll do is take this style and we're going to pass it in after text. So the style goes in right after that. You'll see that now when we select our object that has the text applied, there will be this new drop down that says style. If we drop that down, there is a ton of options to go over, but this one is about font. So you'll see this font here. All that we need to do is take this file and drag it into that slot that says font. And you'll see that the text automatically changes and kind of falls off screen. So let's move its position so that we can see it. There we go. So now you can see that we have changed our font to this new font style. I'm also going to change the color so that we can see this. I don't want this black, I want it to be white. So if I go to the normal here on the style and select white, you'll see that it changes to now it's white with that font. If you go into various other things like, I don't know if hover works for labels or not, it doesn't look like it, but there's a bunch of stuff that some of this, like the hover and the active, are probably more for buttons. So say this guy will have more use for hover and active and focused and stuff like that. Something that this does have is padding and margins, and the padding just kind of changes. It looks like it changes position, but it's basically adding padding. If you are not sure what that is, it's basically space from the left or right, well, from the left side in this case. So how much space from the left is the text. So there's padding and margins and borders and all this kind of stuff. There's also other things like alignment, where I can say align lower right or align middle center, and it'll align to the middle center of the rectangle. If you remember, we made a rectangle here that we are applying this to. So it's in that rectangle. It might be easier to do this to a button. So let's go into our code where we have GUI label, and let's comment out this GUI label, and let's actually turn it into a button just so we can see kind of our padding. Well, we won't actually see it. You'll notice this. I guess this is more of a warning than a lesson at this point. When you do put in a button and you add a style, that button is not going to be visible. So you can see that it doesn't have this bluish outline, and you know that we switched this to a button. If we were to take this public style and add it to our button over here, and then take this and put it to the end of our button, your button is going to basically disappear except for the image. You see how it went away? That's because when we use GUI style like this, everything goes to default blanks. Sorry, this isn't the right one. The style on the button here, everything goes to default, which is all blank, and that's why it would disappear. So beware of that. GUI style, you can add all kinds of images, so you can put a normal texture. Say if I put this around it, you can see now that the background of the button has this glowy effect. And say on hover, I want to change the glowy effect to be the face. So if I were to play and hover, you're going to see that the glowy effect turns into the face. Now this isn't a button style tutorial, so I just wanted to give you that warning, and I will do a button style tutorial later. So that's how you add some fonts. Sorry, I got a little bit off track at the end there, but that's how you add fonts and can change them and update them, and a little bit about padding and color in real time. So until next time, I will see you. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearded Man Studios, and before I get a lot of questions on my last video about the whole GUI style, I know I'm going to get questions about what's a GUI skin. So actually I'm going to delete this so I can go from the start. If you right click create, you'll see there is a GUI skin down here, and I'm going to call it example. So what is the GUI skin for if we can change the font and everything directly on the script itself? Well, let's jump into our label script and let's comment out let's comment out this second half of our let's first uncomment the label that we commented out, and then let's comment out after text. Let's comment out where it says style, so that we're not applying the style anymore. In fact, we could just delete it because let's delete that and then delete the GUI style variable. Now we're not using it whatsoever, so let's jump back and see it update back to the original, I guess that's Arial or Helvetica. And let's apply a skin that we can change from here. So inside of our script, let's create a public variable. Let's call it public GUI skin. Let's just call it skin is equal to null. And to apply this skin to this label, what we have to do is type GUI.skin and set it equal to our skin variable. And we have to do that before we call the label, and this will apply it to this label. So if we go back, nothing will change at the moment. Oh, first I gotta save. When I go back, nothing will change because the skin is null. So what we need to do is go to the cube, and here where it says skin, let's drop the example skin onto it. And let's click on the skin because we have to edit it, and we want to add our own font and replace that Arial. So let's take our font. Mine is this comic book font, and I'm going to place it on top. You're going to see that it automatically just goes ahead and replaces it, and our ending of our sentence cut off because of our rectangle. So if you go to the cube and extend the width of this until it pops back on, there it goes. Now it's back. So if yours disappears, that is why. So now we have this skin attached as a variable, and rather than editing it directly inside of each and every label, we have a modular skin to pass around. So if I were to attach, we can easily attach another script. Let's take this GUI label, attach it to the cube. So we have two GUI labels now on the cube, and the first one is going to say hello Brent. And oops, it's going to say hello Brent, and we're going to turn the debug mode on so we can see hello Brent there. And now, since we already have a skin, we can just drag that skin onto it, and it'll automatically apply our new updated skin. So that's what skins are good for. Now, rather than making a style on every single one of these, because if I had style down here, I'd have to do the drop down and change style on two different scripts, and that would be extremely lame. You would want to do that for just kind of one script. If it was kind of lonely and by itself, and there was no need to create a whole GUI skin just for that one that is the only one that's going to look like that. But if you have 1,000 that look all exactly the same, you can imagine how lame changing the values of 1,000 things would be when you could just create a skin and change it directly in here. So you can see that I have a label here. You can see there's also, I should add, there are more options, and that is because they are not options, they are different types of GUIs. So there's box, button, toggle, label, text field, etc. And if I open up label and go to normal, you can see the text is white, and I can change it to whatever in there, and it'll change in real time. So not only does a skin give you modularity, where you can apply it to multiple things, it also gives you isolated styles, whereas if you add a style through code, you kind of just get a generic style that covers basically what's in here. And if I were to go into something like vertical slider and change that normal color, you can see nothing happens to the text. So that is the importance of skins, and I would encourage using skins over styles. The style was to give you kind of a heads up on how to get things working and running. Now a skin is more complex because it has all of these options and it's modularity, and you have to open up a variable and drop it in, but it's much more powerful. So just that was a heads up on skins, and how skins and styles are basically kind of the same thing, except skins give you individual options and it's modular. So yeah, I hope this helped out, and we'll be going over more things about skins and changing different things about various GUIs. So until then, I'll see you later. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearded Studios, and I had a request about buttons and getting the buttons to have kind of different hover, click, and whatever looks. So, oh, sorry, I forgot to open up my main scene. Let's go back to that scene I was messing with before. This is not the scene. This is not the scene saved. I didn't save the scene. Fantastic. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube. And on that cube, I'm going to drop the button script, turn on debug. I want to open up the GUI button script inside of MonoDevelop. And this style is now going to be GUI skin. And we'll just call it skin. And down here, we're going to delete style from there, and on the beginning of the GUI call is just called GUI.skin is equal to skin. There we go. Alright then, let's jump back over here, and now we have a skin option. I am surprised, oh there it is, just didn't update fast enough. So there is our button. I'm going to add a string here, so public string title is equal to string.empty. So we create an empty string there, and the title is going to replace the button image that you see there. So let's jump back. Let's put in a title. Let's just call it my button. And what we're going to do is make this button have different textures for when we're in different states. So inside of the assets folder, I still have this example GUI skin. We need to add that to the skin component there. You see that our text switches to what we had in our skin previously, but now we want to change the states, the hover and the press state and all of that to this button. So what we're going to do is click on our example skin originally. I'm going to jump over to my textures, and I have three textures. I have a down, hover, and up. And in the right of the skin, there is a button drop down, and in there are three drop downs that we are wanting. There's active, there's hover, and there's normal. You can see there's already the buttons in there by default. We can just replace those. I'm going to put my hover on that hover. I'm going to put my up on the normal, and I'm going to put the down on the background. So just so you can see what these look like. Oops, went to my other screen. This is the up, this is the down, and this is the hover. So when I play the game, you'll see now that we have our normal over here, and when I hover over it, it does the hover effect, and when I click, it does the down effect. So I might want to change my text color just because it's so hard to see on there. Let's jump back to our example skin, and up here we have inside of our label, I believe it's going to be in label, our normal color. Let's change that to let's change it to blue. Apparently it is not that one, so at least I don't think it is. Let me hit play and find out. No, it's not. Okay. So what this is going to be is actually inside of the button. I must have missed it. Let's see. Let's just, inside of normal, the text color, I completely missed that. Let's make that a red, and then on the hover, let's make it a green, and on the active, let's make it a blue, just because RGB. So let's hit play. On the normal, it is red. On the hover, it's green, and on the click, it's blue. RGB. So that's how we can get our own custom skins going, and there is a ton of stuff in here. There's focused and on normal and borders and margins, so we can change the borders and margins of this. I think this is more for the text. The margin is. Let's check out the padding. There we go, the padding of the text is on there. So you can see that. I forgot what that was. I'll put it at 6. But yeah, that's a quick way that you can switch out the skin, the hover state, the click state, and all of that for your button. These are just, average images that I made that are kind of just simple buttons, so you can have them as cool as you want, obviously. So I hope this helped out, and I'm going to jump back to my comments to make sure I didn't miss anything, and if I did, I shall make another video. So until next time, have a good night. Well, it's night for me. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from Beardman Studios, and this is one more video to update on my cool little button thing that I did on the last one. What I want to go over is how to kind of dynamically change things from inside of the button. So this is a little bit not about UI, and it's more about logic dealing with what the UI gives us, I guess we can say. So I'm going to open up the GUI buttons script here. Oh, you might have also noticed that I had a new texture in here called meh. So what I'm going to do is open up that script, and in here where I have the button image, I'm going to make another one, public texture 2D. Oops. How about I just copy this? And we'll call it other image is equal to null. And I want to make a boolean. So let's make a private bool has, let's see, invert click is equal to false. So each time we click, we're not only going to transform the object, but we're going to set invert click equal to not invert click. So when we set a boolean equal to its not, then it basically gets inverted. So if it's true, it becomes not true, and if it's false, it becomes not false, which is true. So in that, what we can do is change out the texture we have here. And we can change that out by making one more variable. Let's call it private texture 2D. Let's call it current image is equal to null. And let me scroll this up a little bit, just because I know that sometimes I type with it way too small. So what we're going to do is take that current image and replace out the title here with current image. And what we're also going to do is down here in our if statement, we say if invert click. So if invert click is true, we're going to use other image. So current image is equal to other image. And else if that is false, so else current image is equal to, what was the first one called? Button image. Button image. So now whenever we click on this button, it's going to invert what is on there. So this can be used for, say the button is being used to do something. It opens up a menu, and you want the button to change its image so it shows the menu is open. When you click it again, you want to close the menu, so you want to show the menu is closed. So this is a way that you can toggle that. So let's select our object that has our UI script, and let's jump into our textures. Lost it. Okay. And you can see I have a button image and another image. I'm going to put the first one into the button image and the second one into the second image there, and hit play. And this is not, oh there, wow, that was strange. I'm not sure why it didn't update. Oh, because our current image starts off being nothing. Sorry about that. So in our private void start, let's set the current image equal to the button image. And that way, when we press play, it starts off being that image. We can click it and it switches. So to emphasize my point, what I can do is set the let's make a second position. Let's call it position 2. And likewise, let's make a let's see, where do we use it? We'll just put it here. We'll call it private rect current rect is equal to let's just kind of set it to the first one here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, instead of passing in position here, we're going to pass in current rect. And down here, when we do this if check, so if it's inverted, then what we're going to do is say current rect is equal to position 2. And likewise, the current rect will then become position in the inverse. So, just to make sure everything's correct, I'm going to make the current rect start off with position. Even though I set it up here, I want to make sure that it starts off in that in case I change it. And now I can set my rectangle 2, my position 2, to be, let's say, 300 on the X and 150 on the Y. So now when I press play and I click, he's going to jump over and jump back. So now I kind of have a menu state of something being changed using the same exact button, and it can keep track of it all and do the same exact actions inside of it when it's clicked. So yeah, that was a quick tutorial on showing how to get the button to have different states based on clicking it. Of course, a boolean gives you 2 states, but you can use enums and other things to get you more than just 2 states. So with that, I bid you a good night. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Britaman Studios, and I got a question that's probably going to be a fairly common question, and that question is, how on earth do we center this thing in the middle of the screen, or even at percentages of the screen? You're going to want to do this a lot. I wind up doing this a lot, and we're going to just jump right into it. So I'm going to make this button go to the center. And what I'm going to do is open up my GUI button script. In here, I'm going to add a new boolean that's going to say public bool center button. I guess that's good enough. Center button is equal to false. Obviously, when we tick this on in the inspector, we want to center our button. So here we have our rectangle, our current rect. What we're going to do is say if we have center button enabled, which I guess we can do it here, or we can do it in the start. I'll do it in the start, I guess. So if we have center button, what we're going to do is change the current rect. Actually, the current rect is going to be changing all the time. Sorry for the back and forth. Let's put it inside of the GUI. So if we have center button, if that's true, what we're going to do is say current rect dot x is equal to screen dot width, and what we're going to do is divide this by half, so divide by 2. And then we're going to subtract half of the size of the button. So we're going to do minus current rect. Actually, before we do that, let's put our order of operations, our parentheses around these statements. So just so it's easier for us to see it, minus the current rect dot width divided by 2. Now I'm going to do something here that I often do in whenever I program, and sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I like to do it. Division down inside of the OS and on the computer's level, division is kind of complex, and it goes through a lot of stages to get division out. So I know that dividing by 2 is equivalent to multiplying by 0.5f. So I'm going to multiply by 0.5f because this is inside of the GUI, and it's going to be called many times per I guess second. I want to do kind of the most optimal solution. So instead of divide by 2, I'm going to multiply by 0.5f. Same exact thing. And what we're going to do is you're going to find that we're going to do the same exact thing to y. So the current rect.y is equal to screen.height multiplied by 0.5f subtracted by current rect.height multiplied by 0.5f, or divided by half. So when we run this, it's going to center on screen. So before we're able to center on screen, we're going to select our cube, and in our inspector, we're going to turn on this button that just appeared, center button. I'm going to check that on. Check it on, and you're going to see that it's centered in the screen. So if I hit play and I click it, it should remain in the center because I am doing it inside of the onDraw function. Now you'll see this thing stays in the center of the screen no matter how much I move this. Even if I change the aspect ratio, it's going to stay in the center of the screen. Free aspect, yeah, there you go, see? Stays in the center of the screen no matter what. So that's the behavior we wanted. So how can we alter this to kind of do other things like percentages? Well, basically, you see here we get half of the screen. Let me demonstrate in a little bit of an easier form. So let's say that we have our screen rectangle here. Well, what we're doing is we're dividing that first by half, if that's half, and then we have another rectangle, which is the button size. Sorry for that sound. We have the button size there. And notice we have to subtract half of that button size in order for it to be center. And the same thing on the Y. We have to subtract half that button size. So now you can see why we subtracted by half of the button size there. But in doing so, we can do other forms of things. If we wanted to do a percentage of the screen, so we can take, this is half the screen, subtract by half the width. So if we did something like screen width multiplied by, or divided by, let's say 10, and we took off the second half, it's going to take the screen width and divide by 10, so it's going basically from the width, I have no idea what the width might be, and divide it by 10. So if the width is 10, it's going to go down to 1 from the right. So you're able to alter the button in interesting ways. You can see that it stays a division of 10 from the right. So that's I'm going to put this back and leave off with that so you can look at it. That's a way that we're able to move the button dynamically based on screen size rather than an X and Y coordinate, because if we're working on, let's say, Android, there's 500 different sizes and aspect ratios, and if we're working on HD and on PC, if we're doing 1080p, we need to move our UI if they're not using 1080p, say they're using 1024 kind of sizing. We got to be able to dynamically move that stuff around so it keeps the same aspect ratio. So this is a way we can do it. So with that, I hope that helped out. And until next time, I'll see you then. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Beardman Studios, and today I wanted to kind of go over, I had a request on user interface being allowing you to click a button and switch scenes. So this is kind of going to show how to do that. It's going to be a light overview, and you can take it much deeper. So here we go. Here's our scene we're going to teleport to. It's just this sphere going diagonally back and forth. And so anyways, I'm going to jump back to this scene that I have called menu and start the process. So inside of my scripts folder, I'm going to create a C# script, and I shall call it, just call it main menu. Seems somewhat suitable. And forgive me, as I do not know how to pause a video or anything like that with Open Broadcaster, but I can kind of talk through it while it takes a second to open this. One thing I think I can show you is the Unity3D script reference. If you go to the script reference, if you haven't been here before, it is awesome. You can type in stuff like button, and it'll take a second, then you'll see GUI.button, and it'll show you a kind of a small example of how to use it. Switch to C# because you should always be working in C# in my opinion, and in employers' opinions. But it shows an example, so I guess a little throw out there on this website. That's just docs.unity3d.com/documentation/script reference. So back to what we were doing over here. We have our main menu. Let me make that larger. It's good enough. Ooh, that's huge for mine. Let's make it, yeah, that's alright. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our main menu. First of all, we can actually delete both of those functions, and let's do a private void on GUI. This is important. It must be this function name. On GUI controls all of the graphical user interface and how it draws. So this is going to be a very simple button here. We're just going to say if GUI.button, and it's going to ask for a position. So we're going to type in a new rect for the position. We'll make it at 15 on the X, 15 on the Y. Make it 200 in width and 110 on the height. This is just arbitrary number. I just made it up. And let's say go, or let's say load level as the string. So if that, we'll do application.load level. Let me jump over here, see what the level's name was. It was called level, conveniently.
Level.
So, sorry if you heard that. I should probably delete or close that application. There we go. So application.loadLevel level. So now if we jump back over here, we can go to our scripts that we just made and drag it onto the main camera. Might as well. Main camera's fine. If we hit play, you'll see this giant button over here that says load level. If we click that, it errors. Oh my goodness. Could not be found. If you're ever doing this, if you're ever trying to load a level, be sure that you be sure that you add it to the build settings. To open this, I pressed Control-Shift-B. You can also go to File, Build Settings. It'll open this window. What we need to do is drag our menu in there and drag our level in there. If our level's not there, it can't load it. So that's what this error was. So if we hit play, click our button, it's going to load our level with the sphere going back and forth. So one thing about Unity's UI is that you just cannot see what you're doing. Sure, I typed this out all in code, it looks cool in my head, but I cannot see it over here in my little mini display. Well, there is a way to do that. If we go above the class here and type in execute in edit mode in square brackets like that, then when we jump back, you will see that nothing happens. Oh, you have to click over here. There we go. And it'll pop up over here. So something you can do to make this streamlined is that you can say, alright, hey, I need a public rect, call it button is equal to new rect. Actually, I think there's a rect dot, I guess not. So new rect, and let's pass in these values that we have here. Now we're going to take this button variable and stick it right here where we have this new rect inside of this button, and we're going to make this a little more dynamic. We're going to say public string button label is equal to load level. So we can cut that, paste it there, and we can take button label and put it in there. And lastly, we can have a public string level to load is equal to, let's copy our level here, paste it there, copy level to load, and paste it in there. Now our script is highly customizable, and we can use it everywhere, like 1,000 times. So you can see here's our button here, right? Our button's up there, and we can actually change it if we execute in edit mode. So when I clicked it in edit mode, it loaded the level. That's one downside to execute in edit mode. It completely executes in edit mode. So that means that apparently our script wasn't saved onto our main camera. Let me save it. Sorry about all that jargon. Hopefully that didn't confuse you. Now anyways, back over here in our inspector, we have our rectangles, our rectangle, which we can change. So if I change the position to be further over, you can see it moves in real time, and further down, and a little bit further over. That's cool. Let's change the text to say, load my level. And let's make the height a little bit thinner. Put it down a little more. Something like that. And it's going to load level. Obviously we don't have another level to load. Well, I do. I have this demo ground, which has nothing in it but this. So now you can see. I went back to my menu. If I play it, you'll see when I click, it loads this sphere going back and forth. However, if I change it to load demo ground, hit play, and click it. Of course, the demo ground is not inside of the lookup, so add it in. Then hit play and load level, and there you go. It loaded the level with this physics. So there you go. That's a quick way to make a button inside of the UI. The UI is fairly extensive and does a ton of stuff when you get into the more advanced stuff. I can probably show you something. I don't know how long this video's been. 8 minutes, 22 seconds, but you can do some awesome stuff. You can draw lines, you can do all kinds of stuff. If you really want to know, I can put up another video of some things that are actually done with the UI that are incredible. They just take a minute to load, and I don't want to spend that extra time doing all of that and going over it in this video. So that's a quick way that you can make a button and make it load, display it in real time, and be sure you do this because this is going to bug you later. Once you find all of your UI and you place it where you want and it's good, you should go back and delete this execute in edit mode, as it does not need to be there. And in fact, if you don't want to delete it, you can just comment it out. Whatever, it's like deleting it, but you'll have it for later. Just make sure you get rid of it because it'll confuse things. So my beautiful girlfriend is home, and that is the end of this video. Have a good night. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Betaman Studios, and I thought it's about time for me to show you guys the GUI window. It's a pretty cool thing, so I'm going to start in a new scene, and inside of my script, so I'm going to create a new script called GUI_window, and open that guy up. So here in the GUI window, I'm going to first delete out all this stuff. I don't need it. Okay. So the first thing that I want to make is a public rectangle, of course, for the window's position, width, and height. So a public rect. Let's just call it window size. That's fine. Equals new rect. Let's do 15, 15, 250, and 250. And then let's do our on GUI function. So private void on GUI. And let me scroll this up. There we go. So inside of our onGUI function, we're going to create our window. So we can do this by doing a GUI window, which is just GUI.window. And you can see this thing takes in an ID, a client rect, a function, which is the window function that we'll be executing, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start off by putting 0 in the ID. You want different IDs for each window that you make, so you might want to make that a variable, but I'm going to make it 0. Then again, you might also want to hard code it. if you know all of your window numbers and they're not dynamic. And the last thing that it needs is a window function, which I do not have. So before I finish, I'm going to go down here and create a window function. So private void, I'm just going to call it my window, and it needs to have an int, and it needs we'll just call that ID. That's the window ID that's being passed in. So what we'll do is we'll take this my window, paste it at the end, and close that off there. So inside of my window, I can draw stuff now. I can say GUI dot button. Let's do a new rect. Let's make this 15, 15, 50, and 50. And let's make it say BTN. So now I'm going to save that out, go back to Unity, and I'm going to drag my script. Oh wait, I have a error. I forgot something. Let's see. There's a few different ones. Excuse me. The last thing that I need is the name of the window. So I have the my window as the title of this window. And now if I save out and go back, recompile, it'll delete that error. And I'll drag GUI window onto my camera because that's the only object I seem to have in my scene. If I press play, you'll see that I have my window and button. Now, what you notice about this is that the button is not at this. I put 1515, which is the same as the Windows 1515. But if I were to change this Windows rectangle, which I can change now in the inspector here, to let's say 150 on the X and let's do 75 on the Y, you're going to see that that button stays in its position because its new rectangle inside of this function is relative to the window. So if I were to make this 0, 0, it would go to the top left of the window. You can see now it's at the top left of the window. You can also get the window size from here, obviously. So if I wanted to make this more dynamic, I could take the window size dot width multiplied by 0.5, which is half if you remember, and the window size dot height multiplied by 0.5f. And now the top left corner of this button will be in the center of my window. It just looks kind of off center here. Let's subtract 25 on each of these. There we go. Now it's dead center. As you can see, I have a dead center button inside of my window. Now, before I finish this series or this video on the window, I'm going to show you how you can make this thing draggable. So what we can do is right here we have window size. What we need to do is do instead of window, we can do drag window, and we can set our window size equal to the drag window. If I recall correctly, I believe that's all we need to do. So maybe let's test it. I haven't done this in a while. No, that's wrong. Okay, so what we need to do, oh wait, let me double check. Okay, yeah, what we need to do is make this GUI.window, and down here inside of the window at the very bottom of the function we're going to do GUI.dragWindow with no parameters, just by itself. Hit play, and now you'll see we'll be able to drag this window around and place it wherever we want. So, and the button obviously moves along with the window. So that's how you make windows and place things inside of them and how they're relative. With this, it's about time for me to show you the layouts and how to get things nice and neat and awesome without having to place every single rectangle. Some of you are probably going to be upset that I didn't go over this earlier because you may have to redo stuff if you've been working on it. So I hope you don't have to redo too much stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and make that video now so you're not waiting for days for it. So until next time, thanks for watching. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bitterman Studios, and so I'm coming back to talk about GUI layouts, which work well with Windows, since we just covered that video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work off of the same exact scene I was working on last time. So I'll open up my GUI window class, and what I'm going to do is show you something other than this new rect that we have for our button here. We're going to do what's called a GUI layout. So if you type in GUI layout and then put your dot operator, you'll see there's a bunch of stuff: begin area, horizontal, box, all this stuff. And we'll go over this soon enough. But for now, we're going to just do button. And in this button, all we need to do is pass in its content, which could be an image, but I'm going to pass a string, call it button. And no rectangle needed. Now what I can do is show you what it looks like. So if I go back and hit play, you can see this button fills up the entire space, which is pretty awesome. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. So what we can do now is do a GUI layout, and let's do space. And let's put 15 pixels of space. And then let's create another button, and let's call it another button. And hit play. Now I have two buttons, and there's 15 pixels of space in between those two buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and write out a simple layout that you may wind up doing, so just to show kind of the flow. And so what I'm going to do is do a GUI layout dot label. I'm going to say here is cool stuff, and then I'll do GUI layout dot begin vertical and GUI layout dot end vertical. And I'm going to do two of these, so I'm going to just copy that vertical and paste it. Now my first button I'm going to paste into the first vertical, and my second button I'm going to paste into my second vertical. So I have a GUI layout label. Here's some cool stuff. Then a button and a vertical layout, and another button and a second vertical layout. What you'll find is that I have created these kind of verticals. You can't really tell, I guess. Let's change these to horizontal. That'd be in horizontal and dot end horizontal. And let's copy that down, replace vertical with horizontal. Now let's press play. And that did nothing interesting. That should have... Let's do a begin horizontal, and then inside of the begin horizontal, GUI layout dot begin vertical. So let's begin a vertical, and let's end a vertical. GUI layout dot excuse me, end vertical. And let's just copy this. Let's paste it inside of that there, and let's change this one to say another button. Oh. So, maybe this will do what I've been trying to do this whole time. Now if I hit play, there it is. We have buttons side by side, so we've created, in essence, columns. The reason this one's bigger is because it has more text. If this one just said button, I believe it should just go half and half. So let's, there we go, half and half, because one doesn't have more text than the other. So you can see that, here, let me put some spacing in here so it's not all crammed together like this. Okay, so we have a horizontal, a begin and end vertical, which has a button inside. We can add more stuff. I can make button 2 and button 3, and this one, let's paste a couple. Let's make this 4, 5, and 6. Save this, press play. And there we go. We have button 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've created two columns of buttons and stuff to do. We can add labels and everything just the same in here. So if I were to make this label above this button, I could do GUI layout dot label, stuff, I guess. And we'll make another one and call it stuff2 just because we can. And we'll call this one button2, stuff2, and button2. Let's press play. There we go. We have stuff, button, stuff2, button2. So you can see how we can manipulate what's going on inside of the window without having to make rectangles for absolutely every single thing. Otherwise you have a million rectangles, and this is much nicer to just be able to do your layouts, add spacing. Let's add 15 pixels on this one, and let's add 25 pixels on the other. Add your spacing and all of that stuff without having to make rectangles for everything. So I hope this helps out, and I want to get this one up quickly because I know some of you may be wondering, why you've been making so many rectangles for absolutely everything. So with that, thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Brent Ferris from the Bearded Man Studios, and I'm going to go over some character UI stuff, and we're going to do it as if the character is talking for this example. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We have a cube here just stretched out to these parameters. We have a capsule here just to pretend like he's our character. I'm going to put him, zero him out on the X and Z so he's in the center of the camera. So I'm going to create a couple scripts. The first script I'm going to call character. Sorry about that. Been working with my buddy Mike on Bearded Man Studios stuff, so we're chatting quite a bit about it. So I'm going to make one called character, and I'm going to drop that onto the capsule. And then I'm going to create, no, not a new GUI skin. I'm going to create another C# file. I'm just going to call this UI_demo. I'm going to drag that onto the main camera. So now my character has a script attached and my main camera has a script attached. So first I will open up character, close without saving that. So here inside of character, I'm going to create a string. So I'm going to call it public string my words is equal to string.empty. So that's pretty straightforward. And let's create a public void get words function. Even though we don't really need to do this, I'm just going to make a function for those of you out there who want to learn more about calling functions from other scripts. Because I can directly access this variable from the other script because it is public. But I'm going to make a function called getWords. I'm going to return, actually this void needs to be a string because I'm returning something. I'm going to return my words. So now that I'm going to return my words from this character, inside of the UI demo, just go back and double click it open. Inside of the UI demo, we need another private function called onGUI. And this is where we're going to be doing our rendering of our text from our player. So inside of here, inside of our UI demo, we will need to also create a state for when to show text and when not to. So we can create a state up here at the top. Say we'll make it a private displaying. Let's make it bool displaying text is equal to false. And then down here inside of the onGUI, so I got a lot of things popping up on my screen. But here on the onGUI, we're going to say if displaying text. This means if this is true, then we're going to execute this block, as you may know. So inside of this block, we need to get the character's words. What we're going to do now is I'm going to do some stuff in a little bit crazy ways at times because it teaches more that way. So in this example, I'm going to get the object I click on, store it into a variable, and call its script instead of the display text whenever I click on it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a private game object call it clicked is equal to null. And now inside of our update, we're going to see if we click on a player to get his text. So if input.get mouse button down, and 0 is the left button. So if we press the left button, then we are going to need to do a raycast from the screen and see if we hit the character. So we're going to create a variable called raycast hit, named hit. Then we're going to do physics.raycast. We're going to pass in array, which is going to be input dot, oh, not input, sorry, we're going to do camera with a capital C, main camera dot screen to point array, and then pass in our input dot mouse position, and then we're going to out hit. So we're going to output the hit information, and we're going to make this an if statement. So if physics raycast hit out hit, then we are going to say if clicked, oh, not clicked, sorry, if hit.collider.gameObject.get component, we're going to get character is not equal to null. That means that there is a character script attached to whatever we just hit by clicking. So if there is a character script attached, it is a character. So if so, then clicked is equal to hit.collider.gameObject. And if it's not a character else, then we say clicked is equal to null. And then down here on the if statement for the raycast, we're also going to say else clicked is equal to null, just because whenever we click off, we want the text to stop displaying. So in this case, we can actually remove this boolean that we say display text. We can take this clicked and we can say if clicked is not equal to null. So now if we're clicked on anything, it'll display this text. So if we're clicked on something, we want to actually display a label. And I'm just going to create a simple label. I'm going to say GUI.label new rect 15, 15, 100, 25. And we're going to, as the string we're going to pass in, we're going to say clicked.get component character dot get words. Remember that function we made, get words? It's going to return a string, and that's going to be what's displayed. Now there is a ton of UI stuff that can go in. I may have to make a few videos to make up for it, but for this one I just want to get the purpose of clicking on something to display text that it has stored in itself. So I'm statically putting in a rect here, but you may want to put in a dynamic rect, which I'll go over later. Like I said, there's just so much inside of GUI to go over, just tons of stuff with layouts and buttons, textures, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So in this one I'm just going to go over the interactivity part, and we may go deeper into UI later. So this will display something on 15 on the X, 15 on the Y, with a width of 100 and a height of 25, and it's going to display the text of that character. So let's go ahead and go back to our editor, click on our character, and inside of my words, let's type in hello Danielle. I always say Danielle, that's my girlfriend, and I love her. We've been together forever, like 6+ years. So my hello world is hello Danielle. So that is why that is, if you have any questions why. So let's add hello Danielle to that, and let's hit play. Now if I click on the character here, you see hello Danielle is displayed in the top left, and if I click off, it goes away. If I click on, it goes on. If I click off, it goes away. So let me explain why I did this in this modular way. If I duplicate this guy all over the place, right? I have a bunch of him. So this guy is going to say, yo, dog. This guy is going to say, I'm lefty. I'm not very good with saying stuff. This guy's gonna say ahead, and this guy's going to say boo, it's almost Halloween. Yes, I can't spell. Let's put 2 E's in. I don't care. Alright, so now let's hit play. Now if I click on the various guys, you can say I'm Lefty, ahead, boo, it's almost Halloween. See how that wraps around? Let's actually fix that while we're still here and we got some time left. Let's change this 100 to 200. And now if we hit play, click on him, now it's nice and not wrapped. So boo, it's almost Halloween, and yo dog, and of course hello Danielle. So that is how we can get this interactivity going on with clicking on the actual players. So just because we did it this way doesn't mean this is the only way, but there's 1,000 ways to do this. I just want to go over the click interaction. So I'm also going to have to go over proximity, but I don't know how long this video has been. So I will make a second video. Sorry about that noise. I'll make a second video on getting the text from characters based on the proximity of the camera versus the players or something like that. So that's how you get some text on the screen based off of interaction with things. So until next time, that's it.